You guys ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the first episode of Clinically Pressed. This is going to be our first roundtable discussion. We're going to intermix these in within all the interviews that we're going to be doing without our time doing this podcast. I'm Joel. This is AJ. This is Kyle. So we're just going to jump right into talking about some of the misconceptions, the beliefs, and things that just seem to be lost in the world of health, wellness, all the information, all the quick fixes, and all the fads that are out there. So I think just to get started off, AJ, what's your first big one? You're the nutrition guy, and nutrition is obviously very tough.
Yeah, not only nutrition related, I'd say one of the biggest misconceptions I see in the fitness industry is the misuse of certain training programs for a certain goal. To give an example, a lot of people think if you're going to lose weight, the best way to do it is go down to any fitness center, hop on an elliptical, 30 to 45 minutes, and just plug away, get your workout in, and go home, where I think you'd be much more better off if you did 30 to 40 minutes of some kind of strength training program, higher intensity workout, and I think that'll help you achieve your goal. And kind of along those same lines, as people get too wrapped up in this idea of I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight, whereas if you shift your mindset a little bit and focus more so on just improving body composition, I think that's going to be more beneficial in the long term. Helps improve metabolic rate, helps you keep that weight off moving forward in the future. So again, it's not just losing weight. And if you kind of get away from just hopping on treadmills, ellipticals for 45 minutes, and again, ramp up the intensity or shift the style of training completely, I think it'll really pay off a lot more than, again, just the standard slow state steady aerobic exercise that people kind of have focused on so much in the past.
I can't remember how we wrote the article, or I'm pretty sure you wrote it. I can't remember who wrote it. But it was basically like, the scale doesn't lie, but it does. And so I know when we did that SNAP study, it was really interesting that, people were like, oh, I only lost like 3 pounds total.
Right.
But when we compared actual body count through the bod pod, they lost like 6-7 pounds of fat, but they had actually gained some muscle on a really simple, easy weightlifting program, and then they were like astonished by it.
Right.
So even trying to weigh yourself every morning, you may not be getting the success that you want by the numbers, but it's actually a better composition.
And when you look at people's subjective goals, a lot of times they say, yeah, losing weight's part of it, but I want to look more toned, or I want to have more defined muscles. And again,
there's a whole other misconception.
Yeah, but that's really what you're going after, is improving body composition, and you need to lose body fat and increase muscle mass in order to get those muscles to be more visible or look more toned and ripped and so forth. So losing weight's not going to get you to that toned look that you're looking for anyway. Right. So again, doing this kind of training is a multifaceted approach to getting all these kind of different goals.
Do you feel like people buy into that typically? Like they'll jump on board and they'll be okay with that, and the scale's not going down necessarily?
Some do, some don't. Like this study that we ran last summer, we had people literally quit the protocol that they were doing because they were discouraged that they weren't losing weight. But then again, when we tested their body composition, when they came back, they're like, you had an incredible body recomposition going on. Yeah, you're losing fat mass, increasing fat-free mass.
That's everybody's goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's having your cake and eating it too. Not that eating cake will get you there, but
True.
But again, that's overall weight loss. I know some would lose like 3 pounds overall.
Right.
Huge transformations in fat mass and fat-free mass, again, which is really what you're looking for if you're trying to get more toned and things like that. One thing I like saying is if you just focus on weight loss and you just do the kind of standard slow state cardio type of training, you'll get into the situation where you're skinny fat. You may be of normal healthy weight, but when you test your body composition, you're going to be 30, even 40%. Even though you look lean, you hardly have any muscle mass, you have a higher body fat percentage, and again, that's not ideal either. So again, that's where I see people getting wrapped up into this non-efficient style of training because they think it's the best way to go. And I've told you this too, I feel bad for these people because you walk into a fitness center and they're overweight people trying to run on a treadmill, and it sounds painful and it looks painful, they're not enjoying it.
Probably is painful.
Yeah. And they're just kind of, they don't have great form, they're slamming away on the tread, and you're just like, oh, you could do something that would be less painful,
Right.
way more efficient, if you just went down in the weight room and did some of the strength training activities instead of that.
Do you see this a lot? Because obviously you work with a different population than I do, because I'm mainly athletes, and weight loss isn't a huge part of what we deal with, but you see a completely different side of it.
Yeah, I try to. I mean, I do see that. I have patients come in and they want to try to lose weight or get on the exercise bandwagon, and they think the answer is to go out and buy a treadmill or, get the elliptical, and they're just going to pound that out. And for one, I don't think that sounds enjoyable.
I hate it. I didn't know better.
Wasn't my favorite part of the workout.
Yeah, so I think it's tough, and I try to, just try to get the mindset shifted just to maybe transition a little bit, maybe do some body weight stuff or incorporate some things where there's a lot you can do at home.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you love the treadmill, that's great, but, try to mix it up a little bit too.
And that's a good point, is sometimes in the industry, people take this train of thought that strength training is better, and they go the completely other end of the spectrum, and they almost damn you if you do any kind of aerobic training, where aerobic training still has great benefits. It improves cardiovascular health, increases aerobic capacity if you're training for a marathon, things like that. That style of training is definitely going to be beneficial, just not as beneficial as a weight loss tool as strength training can be. So I don't think you want to completely eliminate either from your training. Just know what it is that you want to accomplish.
Sure.
And go about that.
And not that it's completely related, but listening to some of the CrossFit guys, they're realizing that now. It's not all the anaerobic go. They've started incorporating more of the aerobic training because it's evolved so much that that's the advantage they need in order to be able to beat the best guys. You can't completely ignore that side of the spectrum.
There's some people too that need that fix, like their cardio. They have to get their run in, and it's that's great. I'm not going to discourage that, but try
at least for movement,
strength training, and
When I was over in India, sitting with a StrongFirst guy, it's a kettlebell certification, South African, played rugby, gigantic man. We're sitting over there. It's a fitness kind of thing. First one in India, and there's this Bakwa dance thing, Palaxing. Some other martial art cardio thing, and so it's all basically loud music, jumping around, yelling, do this, that, and the other thing, and it was killing your eardrums. And we both kind of looked at each other, and he goes, "Well, at least they're moving." So sometimes that's as good as it can take. So we'll take what you can get, but I think your point is huge with that, and that was one. I don't know if it's a misconception, but it's one I always kind of argue with why I don't do cardio and I just lift. Muscle is your most metabolically active tissue, so in theory, the more you have, the more it should burn throughout the day.
Yeah.
So that's my argument on why I can just lift and still eat pizza on the weekends. And so
when we
if
work,
you could affirm that, that'd be awesome. So I feel a lot better about my life.
there is a direct relationship between the amount of fat-free mass you have and your resting metabolic rate. So the more lean mass you have, more calories you're just going to naturally burn throughout the day. And if you look at it, it allows you to eat more. That's it. If you're looking at maintaining
Moderation.
Yeah, exactly. But with our football guys, when we ran our study this last fall, they were having to eat 5, 6, 7,000 calories just to maintain their body size throughout 2 days because they're larger athletes, they have more fat-free mass, and granted they're practicing and training 3 to 4 hours a day.
For sure.
So they need to eat that much to maintain size, or they'll become weaker, which unfortunately we did see to some degree. Those guys are losing lean mass throughout training camp.
Definitely.
I think going back to the body composition where you talked about the skinny fat, just composition wise, how it's not as ideal. You have those people that are going to do, running, training for a half marathon or whatever they're doing activity wise, they're going to be much more prone for injury too, because they don't have the stability there, and it's double-edged sword.
And along those lines, you were talking about having more lean mass kind of allows you to eat more. If you're in this skinny fat situation, as soon as you stop doing that training and you don't readjust your calorie intake, you're going to just start gaining weight back almost instantly because you've dropped your lean mass, you've dropped your drive for maintaining metabolic activity. So now you've become reliant on that form of exercise, where if you do strength training, you build up a certain amount of lean mass, you can take a week off, you can take 2 weeks off, you're still going to be burning a lot of calories because you have more lean mass. You can't do that forever, you start losing some muscle, but again, another benefit of doing this, you're not completely reliant on that form of exercise to burn calories.
I think kind of stemming off of that, I think it kind of goes into your second misconception, but also part of mine is talking about like calories and calorie counting. And that was one that, you go and you hop on the elliptical and it says you burned 500 calories and you feel great about it. And then you go to Starbucks and you get your insert really long coffee drink here and you just put back in 750. Now are you at a loss for the day? And I think that's one I kind of had, as one of my misconceptions, but like people trying to understand it's not as simple as calories in, calories out. It's a good place to start, and that's why I like how you teach it. But we even had the conversation, and I know I've had this with multiple people, is like how your body reacts to it is going to make a huge difference with it. If you eat 1,000 calories of white bread versus 1,000 calories of vegetables and a good source of protein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest important things to take away from, again, calorie balance is a major part of weight management and stuff like that, but we also have to look at the types of calories as our body responds differently to different types of calories.
Mm-hmm.
We have this nutrition partitioning effect, so we digest them at different rates, we absorb them at different rates, we utilize them at different rates, they elicit different kinds of hormonal responses when we eat them, and things like that. So that's an example I always give is 1,000 calories of sugar is much different than 1,000 calories of lean protein and fruit vegetables, things like that. So that has to be taken into consideration when looking at the types of calories that you're consuming.
And you don't have to starve on a diet.
Yeah, exactly. And getting back to the fat argument is when we had this fat scare and saturated fat and everything was so bad in the 80s, and then we started going low fat everything, replaced it with more refined carbs.
Yep.
Low fat yogurts. Yeah, they have
those corn syrup. It's the enemy.
They have a ton of sugar in them, which is way worse than having a moderate fat intake in your yogurt. And that's why we are trending in a direction where we now have an obesity epidemic. We have much more incidence of type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, things like that. And a lot of it is stemming from that eliminating fat, replacing it with sugar. Now we got a whole other problem on our hands.
I know we both reference this a lot and we both get angry when we watch it, but Fed Up, the documentary where they show that at the beginning of like how cereal is healthy because it's low fat, but then it's packed full of all this other stuff and how that's misconception, and parents are feeding this to their kids because it says that and that's what they think, and yet their kid still is gaining weight or it's not getting better. Well worth checking out if you guys got the time. I know it was on Prime. I don't know if it's on Netflix, but it's well worth the watch.
I think the micronutrients are important too, where you're just looking at macros and just straight up calories. I mean micronutrients, you need those for your processes and enzymes and
absolutely. Mm-hmm. So kind of switching off the nutrition thing, we'll work as Kyle hasn't talked much yet. What's one of the big things that you see, especially working in your world, that is a huge misconception?
So I think core stability is the biggest, far and away. I think core is overplayed. Everything, core this, core that. You want a strong core, but what is a strong core? I think a lot of people's belief in that is I need to do sit-ups, and just strengthen my six-pack. And I think that's starting to become better, where people are starting to realize maybe it's just not that as much, but so the core is not just your six pack. You've got the transversus on the sides. It's encompassing the full 360 around your core, and it's the pelvic floor. It's the diaphragm as well, and it plays a role in performance and injury. And a lot of the athletes at EWL, that we're seeing, it's the same thing over and over. We just have the same discussion. Just trying to work on the same things, but people just fall into the same patterns of just, they get into, tightness in the hip flexors and the erectors, just not activating the diaphragm. And, so we just go back to just kind of working on more of a posterior pelvic tilt, activation of the diaphragm, and able to activate some of the transversus and some of these other muscles.
So what's the best way to train that instead of just doing 1,000 sit-ups a day?
Hanging leg raises, hip flexor exercise.
Like with those areas of weaknesses that you talked about, what's some of them that are corrective exercises that you could do to address some of those areas?
So I think before getting even into the exercises, just laying the foundation of being able to activate the diaphragm. So when you breathe in, your belly should go out. So you're actually using your diaphragm to breathe. If you watch a baby lay on their back, you know, it's just their belly going in and out. Mm-hmm. If you watch a typical adult lay on their back, you know, their belly's pretty quiet and it's all up here. Yeah. I mean, just because we do so much up here with typing and driving, and people carry their stress and tension up there, so they carry a lot up here. That leads into shoulder and neck problems. But yeah, so just starting off, just being able to activate the diaphragm is huge, because everything plays off of that. Everything that you should do, you know, your stability is going to come from here. So working on that diaphragm activation, it's boring and it sounds like a lame thing to do.
I'm just working on it.
Yeah, exactly. Especially like these big football players and stuff. I mean, they're like breathing, really, but I mean, it's important, and it plays a role, and I think they start to see it as they progress and they start to get some results. But laying that foundation, and then just being able to breathe correctly through any movement and activity. So if we start that, work on just the breathing and the activation, and then you can start to incorporate movements and make it more complex from there. Side planks and stuff are going to work the transversus. Dead bugs, bird dogs are all good things, but while doing that, you have to maintain proper pelvic positioning and core activation, diaphragm activation.
So that was kind of leading into one of the questions I had for you. So if you were to take 3 ab or core exercises and say, don't do these, they're actually more bad than good, and replace them with 3 ones that are way better.
Yep. So yeah, I would not recommend sit-ups, just because, I mean, it's going to just overactivation here of the rectus. I mean, everybody loves a 6-pack, you know, for the pictures and the beach and everything, but
favorite thing is, you want a 6-pack? Try 5 sets to stop eating so much crap.
There you go.
Another area to start.
Dietary, yeah, for
Thanks,
sure.
Teen Nation.
So, I mean, you could replace that with the dead bug, so laying on your back and just arm and leg opposite down. That's going to kind of work the cross patterns too, which is great because our bodies kind of work in that direction. Yeah. Front planks are good. They're better than sit-ups, but still, if they don't have the proper activation and stuff, and they have back problems, maybe not the first thing I would recommend.
I think people always forget to use their glutes on that too.
Yeah,
trying to get it all in the core, you got to get everything
and that's going to keep the pelvis in the right position.
And it'll help you go another 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Plank, if you engage the glutes.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that'd
no planks. Side ones maybe better if you can do them.
Yeah, absolutely. Side planks are great. You know, and if you can't do a full outside plank off your feet, just going off the knees, starting off. I mean, you can just progress up. If something's too easy, usually you can make it harder. So, you know, you just work. I was going to get into this later, but form's everything. So I'd rather someone do something with perfect form and only do maybe 2 to 5 seconds, as long as it's perfect form, rather than doing 10 to 20 seconds where it's just atrocious. I mean, you're just training improper patterns. So you got to build that, you know, build the right foundation and the proper patterns, and you'll progress from there, but then you're going to be less prone for injury down the road.
So speaking of injury, how about ab crunch machine, curls that you go into a gym and everyone's going front, back, extension, ab.
Hold on, let's go for that quick disclaimer. We understand the core encompasses more than right here. We already know we'll hear some feedback from that. But before we get into that, word from our sponsor. Didn't you take care of that?
Yeah. We'll get sponsors and then we'll plug them in here. But
for the time
being, sponsors.
No, it's not. Oh, anyway, wow.
Quick commercial break.
If you're interested in it, let us know.
Check it out. Word. Yeah,
there you go. Anywho, back to that, because that ties into one of my things about technology and all the machines and whatnot. But yeah, if you want to take utilizing.
It's the same thing as a sit-up, in my opinion. I mean, it's still working the rectus, and which is over dominant anyways, typically. So, and that's all just sagittal plane stuff. So I mean, there's things that you can replace it with. Whole other topic is just sagittal plane. I mean, this could be a whole other podcast, but there's so much movement.
We're always looking for ideas. Right now.
Yeah, exactly. So the sagittal plane, I mean, all these exercises that we're doing in the gym are all sagittal. Nobody typically works like transverse or the lateral frontal plane. So I think that
we're probably doing enough of them already.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there, so I think it's good to incorporate other, so rather than just a straight squat or straight lunge, maybe a side lunge as well. So back to the straight sit-ups, I mean, I think it's better to kind of work those cross chains, some of the less activated muscles like transversus.
So if we're trying to mix up the direction a little bit, how about the ones where you put your arms behind the pads and then you're doing these oblique rotator?
Those are so I like a landmine. I think are awesome. Like where you're really working like anti-rotational, but you're not torquing the lumbar spine, getting to like the discs and everything. So if you don't have a ton of flexion with the twisting, that's another thing I don't like about the sit-ups is you're just crushing that disc. I mean, it's putting it into flexion. People do enough sitting and everything, put enough pressure on them.
So I've always kind of heard some people say developing tension and almost resisting flexion and extension can almost be just as beneficial as moving through.
Oh yeah,
motion, right? Like so a landmine exercise, you said, you're not really moving a lot, but you're resisting movement quite a bit.
Exactly. I mean, there's a ton of activation there to kind of maintain that, and that's what you want is to be able to maintain a neutral position. So that's going to help you as you're going to lift whatever furniture, helping your buddy move or real life application, I guess.
So yeah, all that ties into
your office.
Yeah.
Kill each other.
Our camera guy Justin had his good abdominal bracing as he had to get underneath.
Yeah, that's your back.
Side story. So there's a desk in the office here, and I built these things to raise it up so we could have.
This is a perfect segue into one of my things. So keep going.
So I could have a standing desk rather than sitting all the time. So I would kneel all the time at this desk, and knees get sore on a hard floor, and it'd just be nice to have a standing desk. So I built these things to lift it up, but then I got them in here. I was like, well, how am I going to get this desk on these things that I built? So we were shooting video the other night, and I'm like, well, I got these big, strong guys here. Well, I'll work together, and still couldn't get it up. So Justin, the camera guy, gets underneath the desk and does a squat to lift it up while these two are on either side, and got him slid under, and it works great now. So thanks, guys. Justin, yeah, he didn't have an injury, so.
There you go. So one of my ones that I had was the thing about technology solving everything. Like everything that comes out these days is this fixes that, this fixes this, like shoes, like I'm not going completely hipster, like gotta go back all natural. Like I do agree with I think they were good. They just had a poor marketing campaign, and then people took it and ran with it and
literally
crushed themselves.
Literally ran.
Yeah, there was no progression to it, but my favorite one, and somebody brought this, and I was like, that makes sense. Like, how often are you supposed to replace your shoes? Well, every 400 to 500 miles. Well, who came up with that recommendation? If you don't have an arch, you can retrain yourself to have an arch in almost every single case. Some are too far gone, but most people you can retrain that back, and you don't need to go buy a pronation shoe or this, that, or the other thing. You don't have to, and you can still do it. And it's the same thing with that. Treating things as skills. I've heard many of a running coach say, "Well, running's not really a skill." Well, how? Like, why is it not? Like, that's what you do. Like, why wouldn't you want to treat it as a skill and be more efficient at it? I changed the complete way how I ran. All of a sudden, I didn't hurt as much when I ran because I wasn't driving my heel into the ground and having every joint in my body have to take that blow. I was using muscles to do it by landing more on my mid and forefoot. And so that was one of my ones. You talk about ergonomic chairs. You're still sitting, so you're still crunched over at your hips. That was one point I was going to bring up with the ab exercises. Most of the time, it's more of a hip flexor exercise. Your abs just get incorporated into it. So we're feeding this terrible process of always being short through the front from sitting all the time. And things like that, and then even to workout equipment. People talk about how it's really interesting that it used to be all like free weights, and then the machines came in, and that's what everybody did. And now, probably with the spark of CrossFit, which is a whole other topic in and of itself. Some of the good things they brought back is people are up moving again. It's not just going and sitting on a machine. It's getting up and doing body weight things. It's running. It's, getting out there and moving, and not just going in and sitting and working through whatever range of motion the machine's going to allow you to work through. So I don't know if there's some things like technology you've seen that have kind of been destroying, any ab machine like ever. Maybe not. Maybe not worth the money, but I don't know.
The ab belt.
There's
The one that makes you twitch?
Yeah.
That one? Is that what we're talking about?
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Zap yourself.
There you go.
We did play with those in school. We'd have like the Russian stem and everything, and you put it on and not as much. But yeah, I don't think there's much research. And
I think we've done a study out of UWL.
I'm sure, but I bet he did. Yeah, that could. He would be a really interesting. Mark that. Write that down because that would be just really dispelling some myths and things. But so that was my big one. Like we both switched to standing desk, and as you just heard from the story, Kyle has officially transferred over to the standing desk. And just to kind of side note with that, like I try and stand as much as I can during the day. That doesn't mean I don't sit ever. Like I enjoy sitting down just as much as anybody else. But it's all the moderation thing again. Like you can't sit down for 15 hours a day and then wonder why you got hip or low back pain. Like it can be that much simpler than having to go and get x-rays and MRIs done. And, just generally getting up and getting yourself moving can be a huge thing to just dispel that and make it go away.
And along those same lines, and tying it back, what you said earlier with the Vibrams and the barefoot running, people were like, oh, this is good, let's go all in and do it.
Yeah.
And then you're hurt 6 weeks later. Same kind of thing with standing desk. If you're going to do it, ease your way into it, because it took me a while.
That's true.
My knees were hurting, my low back hurt. So again, you don't have to go all in with it. You can still go half days even until you're at the point where you can manage to still work and stand.
Yeah, one of those Vera desk ones I just shared with you. They just put out a cheaper version. They were like $300-400, and now I think that one was $175. So you don't even have to buy a new desk; you just set it on top.
Well, how much did yours cost? I know mine was scraps I had in the garage.
Same here. Yep, same here. I did the same thing as Kyle, but mine was a lot lighter, so it only took 2 people, and it wasn't an L desk. It was just one set thing. But I mean, I built one at home just by buying stuff at Walmart, and it cost me $100.
Yeah.
I basically took a desk and then put 2 end tables underneath it. Worked out really well. So those are all options there.
I know with standing too, like you said, easing into it. I think a lot of times when people stand too long, they kind of fall into an anterior pelvic tilt position, and it's easy to do.
Engaged.
So squeeze the glutes, just kind of tipping the pelvis back. I know that's huge for long time standing. Why it can be problematic with low back pain and stuff. So
for sure. Any other misconceptions you guys wanted to address while we're sitting here talking about it? I think we kind of hit on some of the main ones.
Yeah, I think
for this time.
so.
Got most of them covered.
So, kind of going on to the end of what each episode will look like, is we've got a few questions that we want to ask every guest that we have on here, and so we're going to go ahead and answer those today. The first one being, what are your top 3 take-home tips, or the Twitter version, and or what would be the one thing that you would ask of anybody watching the podcast? AJ?
If I were to pick 3, my first one would be that everyone can benefit from strength training, really regardless of goal. If you're trying to obviously get stronger, increase muscle mass, that's the best way to start. Yep. But we already talked about how it can improve body composition. And Kyle even mentioned helping reduce pain a little bit. If you're just stronger throughout your movements throughout the day, it's going to reduce your risk of injuring yourself or something like that. The second would be, if you're going to overeat on anything, let it be protein. We'll get into it more, I'm sure, in a later podcast of why it is so beneficial. But again, if you're going to overfeed, do it at a steak buffet and not a pasta feed or something like that.
There you go.
Because of some of the nutrient partitioning effects we talked about. Sorry, guys.
I'd much rather eat steak.
That's true.
You'd rather fish, good sort of.
Yeah.
Fish fries, you're still good.
Fries, fried, that's something. I saw a commercial for a healthy fryer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, something interesting. Anyway. Third one?
I kind of said 2, I guess, in one, so I'll just leave it at that. Kyle,
what did I have here? So the first one would just be breathing with your diaphragm.
Yeah.
So
I keep trying to sit here around myself to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to forget, and I'm by no means perfect at all. Right. It's something that I have to work on, but I think whether it's at rest or while doing any movement, that ideally that you should breathe with your diaphragm. That's going to help core stability. That helps. It works out to the extremities and everything. So just with pain or performance, I think that's huge. So
for sure.
Lacking mobility. So if you're lacking mobility in any area, I think that just spending some time there and stretching and mobilizing, getting I almost said I won't go there because you're gonna, I know, mention it here with the recommendation under 100 hours, but great device. But if you have any areas of immobility or you feel like you're tight in a certain area, or if someone tells you that you're tight in that area, I think that spending some time addressing it, because it's just going to probably lead to problems down the road. So
for sure,
it's huge. Plus, it just feels good to stretch. And the last one, I think, is just form, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier too. Is proper form. It's better to do something with perfect form for lower sets than trying to get up there and trying to get that last one.
Smarter than harder.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand, sometimes if you're, maxing out or something, maybe your form's not going to be ideal. And there's instances where, obviously that's going to be slightly different than it's opposed to if you're, every day
for
where
sure
your reps and sets are. So, I'd say those are the 3 big ones.
My 3, I'm still in the first one from Kelly Starrett, who stole it from Sun Tzu, who wrote Art of War. Make your everyday stance your battle stance, and so with that, pay attention to your posture. And I think that came back to something that you mentioned, like making sure you're not in that anterior tilt by just using your glutes to turn it on, tilt back, making sure your legs are straight. I try and stand like this as much as I can because it puts my shoulders into a place that I can't sit all rounded forward.
It's all about glutes.
It is. That Brett Contreras guy really knew what he was talking about.
Glute guy.
Yeah. The other one, perform your own maintenance, kind of tying into what you said. Like, pain isn't supposed to be there. Like, that's not the natural state of the human body. And so a lot of times it's just our compensations that have caused most of that problem. So you really should be able to work on that. I took this last one from a couple guys that I listened to, is like, always think the opposite of what's being put out in front of you and challenge it, because a quick fix is usually false hope. Anything that says it's going to happen for you right away is probably going to give you just as short-term results as it's claiming how fast it's going to get you there. And then as a kind of squeaking the last one in, get a stand-up desk. It's been great. One of my favorite posts was when we found that calculator sitting in the standing and how many calories you can burn. And we can go back into the calorie discussion, but it was like 100,000 plus over the course of a year. I could burn standing versus sitting, and I figured that out. That's like the equivalent of me running like 29.5 marathons in a year. So obviously I avoided a half the other way. So our next question: most influential fitness purchase for under $100.
Here we go. I got on this one early. Mine would be the foam roller, because of a lot of these mobility and kind of recovery things that we've already talked about, improving range of motion, trying to reduce nagging pain that may be there. But along those same lines, make sure you're doing it right. So check out some of the stuff that we put out with mobility guides, or there's lots of great resources online, but if you're just laying around on the floor and you're feeling great while you're doing it, and you do it for 5 minutes and then go on to the next thing, you're not really doing it right. You're not going to get the benefits from it. You should kind of be in mild discomfort while you're foam rolling. It's not going to feel great, but it'll really help. And the things that it's trying to improve, take repetition, and kind of pushing the limits a little bit to get those benefits from it. So that would be my purchase.
You feel so much better after too. I mean, maybe not great while you're doing it, but after you're done.
Exactly. You should be able to see immediate improvements on all those things.
Test and retest.
Yeah, absolutely. Improvements in range of motion. So that'd be mine.
Mine is everything to make bulletproof coffee. We haven't talked about it a little bit, but that is the butter and MCT oil in your coffee. And it sounds weird, but it is awesome. That's all I drink for breakfast now. It's the only way I'll start my day if I can. I didn't have it today, but hopefully I still seem sharp. But it's a lot of fat, but it tends to make me feel full, gets me to lunch, and then it also helps me just feel like I'm a little bit more focused, got my body running a little bit smoother in the morning, and allows me to go into an intermittent fast. And so, gonna keep riding that train.
When I looked at this list, I was the third one to ask something, unfortunately. I would have probably said the same thing as AJ with the foam roller.
Yeah, or any tool.
I've got
softball, baseball
sitting there. I mean, we've always got them in here. Right. Yeah. So I was just talking to a patient last night about how he's got one and absolutely loves it and lent it to his father-in-law. It was like 2 weeks, and he's like, literally, man, I need this back, or I'm gonna go buy a new one. But like,
Nice.
Seriously.
Nice.
And he was freaking out when his kids hit it and stuff. And so I tell patients, like, if you don't like it, bring it back. And I haven't had someone bring one back yet. They just love it. So.
Nice. For sure. And then our last one, what would you tell yourself in either your training or your education if you could go back 10 years?
Go for it. All right. So what I would tell myself is basically lay it out, set your priorities. Get your priorities, what's important to you. Based on those priorities, set your goals. So I have my priorities set. Now I got my goals set, what I want to accomplish, and then set out a plan how you're going to accomplish those goals, how you're going to tackle it. And then based on my schedule and family life and everything else going on, how am I going to incorporate this into my daily life?
For
Make
sure.
a plan. I mean, it's good to have goals, but you have to figure out how you're going to get them. And if it's not functional for you, if it doesn't work with your daily life, it isn't going to happen, So you have to make it a routine, basically.
For sure.
So I think that's very important. And then along the way, I think it's good to just smell the roses and enjoy the ride. It's very easy to think about the next thing and what could be and what could be. But I mean, once you get there, then what? You gotta enjoy the ride, make it fun.
Where were you at 10 years ago?
10 years ago, it's 2016.
I
I would have
set the tone for all that message.
Yeah, I would have been at EWL. So my fourth year at EWL. So I was starting to get stuff straightened away and.
We won't make you say how old you were then.
Yeah, that's all right.
None of us are that old. There you go. What about you?
Mine's going to be training related, and for me it would be don't ignore the recovery part of your training program.
Yeah.
And this is everything. This is sleep, this is nutrition, this is active recovery, and things like that. So, a lot of people will work out religiously during the week, and then on the weekends, party like crazy. They'll eat like garbage, they'll sleep 6 hours a night, and then they expect they can pick it right back up on Monday and be ready to go for a new week's.
How did you know me so well in college?
And I mean, this is from experience.
Right.
This is why I'm telling myself, hey, this is going to catch up with you later in life.
Mondays are bad enough as it is.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wait till the real world.
And in terms of active recovery, I wish I would have known about the benefits of mobilization work back then, because otherwise, if you ignore them and you keep ignoring them, I went to school for a long time, so I sat in the desk for a long time.
Right.
I have a ton of low back, hip flexor issues that have now created movement restrictions that now, I struggle with when I train, when I do squats, deadlifts. I have these movement and chronic nagging issues that I have to work around. I'm always bugging these guys, hey, this hurts, that hurts, what can I do? And a lot of it's because I ignored this stuff for so long, and now it's caught up with me, and I can't train the way I used to because I have to work on some of these other things first before I can continue on. So that would be mine, is don't ignore that stuff, because it'll eventually catch up to you, and then you're going to be stuck facing those instead of whatever your training program wants.
So you're 10 years ago, college? Which
Which
part of college?
Yeah.
Undergrad still?
Around undergrad.
Undergrad still? Okay.
The beginning.
The beginning, yeah. For me, 10 years ago, would have been right in the beginning of undergrad. Mine would be, there's no quick fix. It's don't spend as much money on stupid supplements as you did. Wish I could have that to invest back in. Bodybuilding magazines and all of those mean nothing to an athlete, and they don't help at all.
Still reading.
Yeah, you got research going on with that. Eating more doesn't mean eating whatever you want. We touched on that a lot. Going back beyond 10 years, I wanted to get bigger in high school, so I would get 2 chocolate milks and a donut.
Tasted good.
Tasted great. I don't know, probably not how I wanted to. More on the academic side of it, study sooner than later. I just feel like I lost out on a lot of time. Things that I could be bringing in, didn't take advantage of opportunities as much as I could have to learn stuff from different people. And then the last one was going back to one of my favorite podcasts I've shared with you. I should send it to you. This Dan Pena guy, and I won't use his exact quote, but basically just effing do it. Get started, get after it, get it going, and you never know what's going to end up happening. And that's something that I'm really trying to focus on now, is just making sure we're not just planning and thinking about it, talking how great it is. Let's just go do something. So
That's why we're doing podcasts.
there we go.
Yeah, get it going.
So with that pretty much sums up the first episode. Kind of in closing, please take a chance to go check out our Kickstarter campaign and check out our promotional video on what we're trying to get accomplished with this. We're trying to just build it, make a better product, get better recording. Hopefully hook our camera guy up with something because he's been such a good friend to help us out. We'll hopefully have an interview for our next episode. We're going to keep that a secret, mainly because we're not sure who that is yet, but that will be coming out
You got some options.
within the month. With that, if you wanted to find any more information on this, you can check out clinicallypressed.com, where we'll have links to all of the episodes as they get going and some other informational links. You can always check out totalathletictherapy.com, our daily blog that AJ and I run. That's free with just new articles, tips, things like that. We just launched our website as of 13 hours ago, so that's up there and fancy now, but we reference like mobility things. We've got a couple free mobility guides on it, some nutrition help, even some basic starter programs that you can just download for free, and then obviously we can take things from there. If you ever need to look into chiropractic and you're in the Cooley region, check out Dr. Kyle and his wife Erica's place, Cooley Health, cooleyhealth.com, if you want to take a look at that. And we look forward to having you on future episodes.
All right.
Sounds good.
We did it. All right.
Time.
What was the time?
41.
Yeah, you were right on that.
Dead on.
Nice
That was good.
Yeah, that was good.